Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the September 14 Zoom Citrus Workshop. Thank you for joining us. First, I would like to thank Alison Walton from the Southwest Florida Research and Education Center in Immokalee for her help and cooperation. Today's program offers one CEU for pesticide license renewal and one CEU for certified crop advisor. If you need CEUs, email me your name, email address, and license number. Our guest speaker is Dr. Jude Grosser. The co-author is Dr. Fred Gmitter. Both are professors in citrus breeding at the UF-IFAS Citrus Research and Education Center in Lake Alfred. The title of the presentation is Promising New Fresh Market and Processing Varieties that you can grow now and in the near future. Discussion will include competitive seedless easy peel mandarins, improved red grapefruit and grapefruit alternatives, seedless lemons, high quality juice oranges for the entire season, and new rootstocks and tips for sustainable, profitable production. Dr. Grosser, it's all yours. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Manji. Thanks, Allison. And good morning, everyone. So as Manji said, I'm representing our breeding team, and my colleague, longtime colleague, Fred Gmitter is on the seminar as well. But I also want to introduce our new assistant professors, Manjul Dutt and John Chater. So what I want to do today, let's see here. My slides are not moving. Here we go. There we go. What I want to do today is give you an overview of all the options that we're creating with our breeding program. And it's too much to comprehend everything in an hour. So what I would like for you to do as a participant is to just jot down whatever selection tickles your fancy, and then you can get in touch with us and the extension agents to get more information and to get more planting ideas and planting options for the particular selections that you're interested in. So I'm going to start with the fresh fruit options. And the first one is Fred's UF-950. It's a very, very nice, totally seedless mandarin, matures around Christmas time. Up in North Florida, it's done exceptionally well, and the fruit tastes absolutely delicious like candy, and the bricks can reach a high of 18. So it's a very nice option for North Florida, and the trees are fairly greening tolerant. So you can see here a picture of some of the trees at the CREC. So it's a good option. But now I want to mention Marathon, because I think this is probably your best option if you're interested in planting a really high quality mandarin. It's named Marathon because it has a long harvest window, and actually we started eating fruit from this last week. Fred and John Chater and I were out in the block, and the trees are loaded. They're doing very well against HLB, and one of the more interesting attributes of this particular selection, in addition to the long harvest window, which can last all the way into December, is that you get almost no symptomatic fruit. There's virtually no greening symptoms in any of the fruit on the trees, so you can get a really high pack out. The fruit's delicious, and although it has a yellowish orange color, it does respond to ethylene, and you can enhance the external color with ethylene treatment. So it's really a winner because of its exceptional fruit quality and its exceptional HLB tolerance. So it's available now, and I would expect to see a lot more of this planted. As I mentioned, here's some of the characteristics. The main one is that it's HLB tolerant and is a really nice fruit. Here's cropping on the tree, so you can see that it does pretty good. This is a tree that's had HLB for a number of years. Next one is another one of Fred's 1956, and you can see how beautiful it is. It's a good candidate for cups. We don't have a lot of information on how it does outside, but in cups, it's forming these clusters, and the fruit's easy to peel, delicious, totally seedless. Also, the issue with it could be fruit size, so we're testing some new rootstocks that we think might increase the fruit size a little bit, which will be helpful. But for now, it's something that you might want to consider trying if you're doing cups. Here's some of the fruit quality data. Dr. Chater has been taking some data from fruit down in Jerry Mixon's, so we'll have additional data to present to you in the near future. But it's, again, completely seedless and easy to peel, and it's an early season fruit. Here's some pictures of the fruit at Jerry Mixon's cups in Alturas. It's absolutely beautiful. This is one from my own work. It's a triploid mandarin hybrid that it's called 18A939, but we were actually given permission from the university to use the Gator name, which was unexpected. This one matures in December and holds all the way through January. And in my opinion, it tastes better than a cutie or a halo. Easy to peel. The field fruit has 1 or 2 seeds per fruit, but we have some fruit in cups that looks like it might be completely seedless, but we'll be collecting data on that later. But it's a really productive tree, and it's also showing reasonable HLB tolerance when you do the nutrition correctly. So here's some trees in the field that have had HLB for a few years, and they're hanging in there quite well. This is a new release that we just got through the release program. And if you remember, I had previously released a selection we called Seedless Snack, that when it had good juice content, it would win our fruit displays for the tastiest variety. However, we've had a horrible fruit granulation problem with the selection. And so a lot of growers have gotten discouraged with the original release because of the granulation problem, even though the trees are fairly tolerant of HLB. So we've got a sibling from the same experiment. It's also low seeded, but not quite as seedless as the Seedless Snack. So you'll see an average of about 2 small seeds in each fruit of this particular selection, but we're not seeing the granulation problem. And it has very similar characteristics and flavor to the original Seedless Snack. So this one is now available. It's not a zipper skin, but it can be peeled, and the flavor is just phenomenal. So that's another new option. This is one that's not through the parent tree program yet, but it will be very soon, and the tree is very, very tolerant of HLB. It's another cutie halo type fruit that has exceptional color and flavor. So it's 18A840. You can look for that one in the next within the next year. It should be commercialized. So there's a lot of nice new mandarins in the program. And I didn't even mention all of them. You'll hear about a few more in the upcoming fruit displays. So now I want to switch over to the grapefruit and grapefruit-like hybrids. And you heard a lot about 914 before, because it's so wonderful for fruit quality. A little bit less bitter and sweeter than a standard grapefruit, but it has the traditional grapefruit flavor. And this is also the one that is very low in furanocoumarins. And we've had studies that have shown that it has potential not to interact with prescription drugs, but we're not allowed to advertise that without a whole bunch of $1 million studies. So, but everybody that that's paying attention to it knows that people that are on statins and high blood pressure medicine can eat this and not worry about a grapefruit interaction. One thing I wanted to point out, though, it's been difficult to grow this kind of like our traditional grapefruits, but in the IRREC Millennium Block trial in Fort Pierce, it seems to be doing fairly well on the X639 rootstock. So we were excited to see that. Let's see here. Again, the unique characteristics, you get very nice bricks and a higher ratio than with the ruby red that we compared it to, and this is every year. So it's the neat thing about this variety is people that like grapefruit like it, and people that traditionally don't like grapefruit seem to like it because of the sweeter, less bitter flavor. So could increase the marketing of a very tasty fruit. This is a grapefruit that I released. It's actually a hybrid. It has organelle genomes from Dancy tangerine. What's interesting about this one is it's a pink, but it turns gold if you leave it go long, and so you can start eating it in December, and it's quite good, but it'll hold all the way into August. And when you see most grapefruit, it's starting in June or so, the fruit starts drying out and the seeds inside germinate. We haven't seen that problem. So this has a really long harvest window, and it just gets sweeter. The bricks goes up, the ratio goes up. So it's a real good candidate if you want a very long harvest window for a nice grapefruit. And you can see it crops very, very well as well. And it's available. We just released this one. This is a grapefruit-like hybrid. It's a pink. What's unique about it is that you can be eating it right now. It's absolutely delicious right now. The bricks is up to 11 right now, and the ratio around 15. So it's a couple of months ahead of any really good Florida standard grapefruit. And the trees are pretty tough. They have less of an issue with canker and with HLB than traditional grapefruit. They're not resistant, but they're more tolerant of both diseases. And there's also a couple more siblings of this one that are in the pipeline too. So there may be minor differences between those that we have to sort out. But anyway, this one's available, and there's another one that looks very promising that's very, very similar. So can you imagine having the grapefruit packing starting 2 months earlier than what we've had before? I think it's a big opportunity. Brett's made a whole bunch of triploid hybrids that same kind of experiments that 914 came from. And this one's actually a sibling of 914. It's very early maturing. We haven't done the Farano coumarin test on it yet, but it's coming. It's through the parent tree program, and it's available for testing under an MTA. Quite delicious, and again, sweeter and less bitter than a standard grapefruit. And there's a couple more of these that Fred's put into our fruit displays, and they've always been well received. Everybody thinks they're beautiful and tasty. And these are just through the parent tree program, so they can be planted out under an MTA too. And in the field, some of these are doing better against both canker and HLB than traditional grapefruit. So we need to take a bigger look at them and get them on some different rootstocks in different locations in the state to see how they do. So you can all volunteer to help us with that. Now, fresh lemons. Well, we've been working on lemons with a major beverage company for more than 15 years now, selecting lemons for higher oil production. But through that work, we've discovered several seedless selections. So if you're going to be planting lemons for juice, why not have seedless selections that you can put into the fresh market? Because everybody's been putting lemons in their iced tea for years, but now they're putting it in their ice water, and nobody wants seeds clogging the straws or getting into their dishwashers and clogging up the sprayers in the dishwasher. So the seedless lemons are a big new option, and these are available now. We have a clone from Eureka that we're naming after our beloved Beatrice that worked on this project before she died from cancer way before her time, a wonderful person. So we're really tickled to name this first seedless lemon after her. And then we have a Todo del Año type, a Beers type, and a Lisbon type, and they're all nearly seedless and probably will be seedless, completely seedless in a solid block, but that remains to be seen. So these are all available for trial as well. Bonjol has released 2 new finger lines that are really, really nice for quality, and they have many uses. You can put them around the tops of margarita glasses or on as a garnish on salads. You squeeze the fruit and the segments just come out. individually, and they're very tasty and very attractive color wise. So both these two are available. You can get trees now and do whatever you want with them. There's a lot of attention on these for a niche market uses, and they have good potential for that. So they're available. Now I'm going to shift over to processing oranges, and we've really been making a big effort here for the last 40 years. And NFC consumption is going down. There's a lot of problems. This past year we had almost no yield, and the fruit quality was horrible. We had a horrible bricks problem. So we're attacking all of those sorts of problems with our new oranges. Here you see a picture of OL8 juice on the left and store-bought NFC on the right. So it's a no-brainer what new oranges can do for the quality of the juice. So these are sweet oranges that we've already released and have been available for a few years in most cases. And I've highlighted my three favorite ones. The B965 Valencia is a standard Valencia clone, standard maturity date. It beat 32 other selections in a 7-year trial for yield and fruit quality. So it's a precocious bearing orange. It's tougher, a little bit tougher against HLB than other clones. It's been available for a while. We've released 3 OLL clones so far, 4, 8, and 20. 8 is my favorite. Tropicana identified something special about the flavor of 20 that's beyond the sugar acid ratio. So they really like the flavor of 20. And so it's getting a good look right now. So it's out there. Valquarius is a Valencia clone that matures in mid-January. It's got really good fresh market potential, and it seems to be out yielding Vernia in a trial. Well, adjacent blocks down at Paul Mislevy's in Bowling Green, the Valquarius had out yielded the Vernia planted right next to it at the same time on the same rootstock by 30 and 40% the last couple of years. So it's also better for the fresh market because the fruit color and shape is better than what you see with Vernia, although the interior juice quality is very similar to Vernia. So all these are available. I'll mention Hamlin N1332 here in a moment. So here it is. There's been some interest in Hamlin N1332 because it appears to be showing better HLB tolerance than standard Hamlin. This is Doug Richards. He's got a block where they planted almost 500 N1332s on some UFR rootstocks, and all the trees look like this. And he's been very excited about their health and productivity for the past few years, and has been parading people out to see these trees. There are a couple issues with the N1332. One is that it's slow to come into bearing, and the other one is that the fruit quality isn't better than the standard Hamlin. So that's why I put this slide up, because in the original experiment where we selected the N1332, we selected 2 other clones for high solids, and one of these, N1410, if you look down here at the total bricks, it made 11.82 bricks last year, which is way higher than any other Hamlin in the state. If you had Hamlins over 10, you were remarkably well, and this one's up almost to 12 from young trees that were 6 years old with HLB. So this one's available for trial, and it's going into a couple of craft trials, but I'd like to get more of it out as well. If you compare OL8 versus Valencia for pound solids, I have 13-year-old trees with Ori leaves that have never had psyllid control. 5 years in a row, the OLL made a 1 pound soluble solids higher than Valencia right next to it on the same rootstock planted at the same time on rough lemon. And so if you calculate that out per acre, that'll make it, just because of the juice quality difference, you can make $1,000 more per acre by having OL8. And the trees are bigger than the Valencia trees as well, so you get more fruit as well. So it's for me, it's a no-brainer if you're going to pick a late season orange. Here's a picture of the OL20. As I mentioned, Tropicana encouraged us to select this because of its exceptional flavor. There's just something about the volatiles or whatever that's making it the juice from this so phenomenal. So there's interest in this one as well, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good against HLB as well. So when we do our fruit displays, we always have some juice samples out, and I just wanted to show you some comparisons here. But in our test, the OLL20 also came out ahead for a number of the attributes that you're after, the sweetness and the overall flavor. The OLL20 is the green here, comparing it to OLL8, OLL4, and Valencia B965. And then we have some Sugar Bell blends in there. So you can see it almost always wins any flavor contest. Interesting. So we've had these juice displays, and there's going to be 4 more coming up this year. So we encourage everyone to attend if you want to come by and taste juice, and also taste experience the new selections for fresh fruit potential. We invite you to come along. So we're working on oranges to fill the early and the mid season that have a much higher quality. We're not satisfied with Hamlin quality. It has to be blended. So we've evaluated nearly 400 new sweet orange clones out at Ori Lee's. And again, this is all done with no psyllid control. So we selected a number of Vernia clones that are maturing in December, the 1st of December. So it's about 6 weeks earlier than the standard Vernia. And 4 of these have made it through the parent tree program and are now available for trialing under an MTA. And we identified another one that had higher bricks, and the bricks actually got up to 13 if you left the fruit on the tree to 13 till February. This one's not through the parent tree program yet, but it will be soon. And then we found this other one that has a little bit better HLB tolerance. We're also working with new OOL clones, and there's just a gold mine of genetic diversity out there in our population that we've been working on. And my student Maria Bernella just gave a very nice seminar that's been recorded on that if you want more details. But we've identified a few clones that actually are much earlier in maturity. There's a couple that here that are early January, and they are almost through the parent tree program. So they'll very soon be available for trial under an MTA. So getting an OLL that's, again, 6 to 8 weeks earlier than the other released OLLs will be quite significant for both the fresh market and the juice market. Fred's done a lot of work with the radiated Valencias, and he's found a couple that are showing very good HLB tolerance, and they're in our MAC trials. And if you want to see some trees, we can take you down to Eagle Lake. A couple of them look very exciting. Here's a picture of the best of the early maturing Vernia clones out at Ori Lee's, again grown with no psyllid control in the alligator block. So how are these early Vernias comparing to Hamlin? We've had them in our juice tasting last year, and the 2 clones that I put in both significantly beat Hamlin for flavor, and we're comparable to a hybrid blend that I had in the juice test as well. So they are much better quality for both flavor and color than standard Hamlin, so they can make a big contribution to improving our NFC quality. This is some data from the big population of OLL clones out at Ori's, and we're going to be losing the property that this trial is on, where we initially planted over 300 new clones, but we've got 3 or 4 years of data on these now, and without any psyllid control, we're finding several clones that have repeated for very high soluble solids. The trees look great. A couple of them have even made over 7-pound solids, and they've had greening most of their life. So these are all being propagated, and we're getting them cleaned up, and hopefully they'll be going out into stage 2 trials, and we can really nail down which ones are the best. But it's really, really exciting because there's some really strong HLB tolerance in this population that we're hoping to nail down as soon as we can. Here's a picture of some of the trees out at Ori's. Again, grown with no psyllid control, and we've taken a few people out there, and they were just blown away by what these trees look like. But unfortunately, we're losing this block to to development. But we have saved all the good clones, and with DPI's been really helpful working with us to allow us to bring the budwood back and propagate trees that we can plant on CREC property. So we're growing trees in our greenhouse right now, and the majority of them look really gorgeous, even though they were propagated from this field budwood under permit. So we're allowed to put up to 10% mandarin hybrids in our NFC juice, and it's still legal NFC juice. So this is a big opportunity because we've got some really nice selections that have much better greening tolerance than standard sweet oranges. So we need to take better advantage of this. Sugar Bell was the first one that we identified this past year at the Flavors of Florida, a big event where IFAS brings in all of the products from all the commodities, and has chefs from the Gainesville area come in and make all kinds of nice dishes, and anybody can attend. And so we actually made some juice blends and served them at this, and took data on how people liked them. And we compared 2 blends of Sugar Bell with NFC from the store with 100%, and sure enough, the blend that was 50-50 Sugar Bell with NFC from the store was favored strongly over the standard juice from the store. So that just shows you what the potential is for doing these blends. When you see, this many people getting excited over a Sugar Bell blend as opposed to the juice they can buy at the store today. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. So we've identified a lot of these selections that it can improve juice, especially at 10%. Some of them can fix a bad batch of Hamlin even. So here's a picture of one juice from November, and you can see the color that it has in November, and the flavor is quite good on that one too. So here's some data from a couple of them. This is a new one. This is a Temple hybrid, has very, very strong HLB tolerance, and look at the pound solids. The juice percentage is outrageous, and the pound solids outrageous, 8.67. So you can fix a lot of batches of juice by blending this in at 10%. And this one's almost through the parent tree program, so it'll be available soon for trial under an MTA. Here's another one that should be through the parent tree program very, very soon. It's C7-11-7. In this case, the fruit cannot be distinguished visually from a true sweet orange. So it's a triploid hybrid. It's actually 1/3 sweet orange, and Sugar Bell is the mother. But it also has outrageous pound solids per box at 8.31 with exceptional color. And again, as a blending agent, you can imagine what this can do at 10% to a batch of orange juice. You can just really increase the quality. So that one's going to be taking a hard look at again. And here's another one of Fred's 1859 that's available now. It's available for commercial planting. Beautiful fruit, outstanding fresh market potential, and you can see how gorgeous it is. And the trees also, the original tree showed fairly good HLB tolerance. So we're going to be taking a hard look at that one, and it's available now. If you want to plant some of this, go for it. Okay, now I'm going to shift over to rootstocks. I think the ultimate answer is going to come from rootstocks combined with what we've learned from the nutrition work that we've been doing. But I want to show you what our approach is, because I believe that genetic diversity is the answer to the disease. So you got to keep in mind that with all the science that we want to grow in Florida, if you have a rootstock that can somehow transmit something across the graft union that can mitigate the disease, then we can grow whatever scion we want. So this would really be the ultimate answer for our problems, because then we can bring back all the varieties that we've loved in the past, as well as all of the new ones, and grow them successfully without worry of loss from HLB. So I like to show this picture of the blue lobster, because this particular mutation occurs only 1 in 2 million baby lobsters. And so that may be kind of what we're looking at for trying to find the magic bullet in a rootstock. We don't know if it's there, and if it is there, how many rootstock hybrids do we got to look at to find it? And whichever one it is isn't going to light up blue and tell us that's the one. So it's going to take a lot of painstaking work. And we've been at this for a long time already. So we've been screening thousands and thousands of rootstock hybrids for greening tolerance. And we've got a whole program worked out where we do a pre-screen in calcareous soil that's been inoculated with Phytophthora to get rid of the riffraff right off the bat, and only be looking at things that have fairly good rootstock potential. And then they get screened for HLB tolerance directly. So we do this by grafting an infected stick of Valencia, not just a bud, but a whole stick. So it's really hard for the tree to hide from the disease. So almost every tree that we graft this way ends up with an infection right off the bat. And they segregate right off the bat. So here's a picture that shows hybrids that are showing some initial tolerance right off the bat. And here's a whole bunch of duds that get thrown out. So these all came from 3 crosses that we did back in 2016. So some of these are still in the running. This is how it works. It's a numbers game, and at each step of the way, you lose numbers. So if we find things that after 2 or 3 flushes in the greenhouse still look promising, minimal symptoms, we take them to the farm. And we've been planting the initial 5 or 6 years. We've been planting these at Pico's farm. We since switched over to last year. We switched over to a farm here at CREC. So here's what we're looking for. We're looking for these trees that, starting out with an infection, the Valencia just grows off in a normal fashion, even though there's bacteria in the trees. So the rootstock is somehow making these trees tolerant to HLB. So this one's on a complicated tetraploid rootstock that is moving forward in the evaluation system. We're also trying to capture the tolerance of sugar bell in rootstocks because we know with really good nutrition, you can grow sugar bell on any rootstock and it works. So why can't we flip that equation and have a rootstock that you can grow any scion on? Sugar bell by itself is not a good rootstock because it has an issue with Phytophthora, and you can't propagate it from seed because all the seeds produce zygotic embryos and there's no uniformity. So we've made a lot of crosses, and right now we've got a greenhouse with about 150 rootstock hybrids made with sugar bell as a parent. And Gordon Rasnick came over and budded them all up, a couple thousand trees in the middle of April, and they're already ready to plant. They're all growing like weeds. It's really impressive. We put OOLs on them, so they're all going into a commercial grow for trial. Probably be planted next month. So here's a picture of a couple of gauntlet sugar bell trees. They're showing you what the potential is. So the infected Valencias are just growing off very nicely on these sugar bell hybrid rootstocks. So it's a promising avenue for the genetic diversity for getting tolerance into the rootstock. We pay a lot of attention to CT values that give you an idea of the bacterial titers in the trees, because we're looking for rootstocks that don't have any replication of the bacteria in the root systems, even when the top's infected. And we're also looking for rootstocks that can suppress bacterial replication in the infected scion. So this is kind of the scale that's been used over the years. And most of the commercial trees, if you look at all the data available from Mike Irie, they average about 24 to 28 CT values. So the number is inversely proportional to the bacterial titer. The lower the number, the more bacteria. So if you get a 40, that means there's absolutely no bacteria whatsoever in the root system. So we've been collecting a lot of this data. It's very interesting. We're finding quite a few rootstocks. I mean, it's a very small percentage of the total, but we're finding, some that have had no bacterial replication in the roots. Led by Dr. Chater, we have a NIFA federal grant that's going to allow us to determine what that actually means for the tree. So we're propagating all of these rootstocks that the bacteria does not replicate in, and they're coming from a number of sources. Fred's got a population of Clementine latipus hybrids that seem to be completely resistant to bacterial replication, and Module also has a few hybrids with some of the finger limes, and also with latipus and different citrus that are showing this response And we have some with good rootstock pedigree that are showing it. So this grant will allow us to determine what does this mean? Is it the ability to preserve feeder roots? Can these root systems function better after the top of the tree is infected? There's evidence that is indeed happening, but we're going to nail down exactly what's going on from an academic point so we can understand the mechanisms that are responsible for whatever tolerance we get out of these rootstocks. So here's an example of one of the more recent gauntlet rootstocks over at Pico's farm. And you can see the CT values are very, very high in the roots, which are numbers that mean that there's suppression of the bacterial replication. And in this case, it's also being suppressed in the leaves of the tree. And so that's probably why this tree is doing so good compared to the one next to it. That's a dud. So very, very interesting and very promising rootstock research. And incidentally, this one has very good rootstock pedigree. It has trifoliate orange and it has Sequoia and Pomelo. But we're finding with Sequoia that you get Clio attributes, but you also get precocious bearing, which is way different from Clio, because you know, if you've used Clio as a rootstock, it usually is slow to bring trees into production. But Sequoia has very wide soil adaptation and brings trees into production very quickly and seems to transmit that to its babies. So we got a lot of hybrids that have this sort of genetics that look very, very interesting. We also have our eyes open for a lot of things, and I just want to show you one example. Years ago, Manjul and I did a greenhouse experiment where we actually got some funding from CRDF to do a nutrition experiment in the greenhouse with infected trees. And we put infected Valencia on 5 rootstocks and put them under some slow release treatments in the greenhouse. And at the end of the experiment, many of the trees looked so good that we didn't want to throw them away. The nutrition was actually suppressing the symptom development from HLB, even though there was high titers of bacteria in the trees. So we got a permit and we planted these up the road with Gapway Groves, about a mile up the road from the CREC. And after 18 months, only the trees with the white wraps are part of the experiment. So you see 4 of them here, one back here not doing worth a darn. We lost about 6 of the trees, and most of them just didn't grow really quickly. They were growing, but at a very slow rate. You see on the left and right. But here's an 18-month-old tree growing like a weed, new flush coming out everywhere. There's 40 or 50 fruits on it, and it's supposed to be on X639. But we're saying, wow, this tree started out with a very high titer of bacteria, but it's growing like a normal tree, and it's producing fruit precociously, which X639 does not do. At least in my trials, it has not done that. So it's behaving completely different than any other infected tree. So we cut it off. Dr. Chater helped me with this, and we sprouted it. And here's the tree cut off. You see all the normal fruit on it. And here you see the sprouts coming out. And so we ran SSR markers. Dr. Gmitter's lab ran them, and Paige Holden in the lab ran the markers, and they matched X639 perfectly. But when we ran the sample on our flow cytometer, which tells us the ploidy level, we expected to see a diploid, and it was a diploid. But when we ran it next to the standard X639, the peak was slightly to the left. And we did this multiple times, and that suggests that there's a small piece of DNA that's missing from this particular selection of X639. So we think there was a chromosomal deletion, a small deletion where a piece of chromosome might have broken off and disappeared. And so what's happening is it looks like that deletion is allowing this rootstock to transmit something up into the scion that's suppressing the autoimmune response of the scion to the greening disease. And it's the autoimmune response that causes, by the plant itself, that causes the disease symptoms. And so we've tested the roots, and this is also came up negative for bacteria, even though there's a lot of bacteria in the Valencia scion. We haven't detected any in the roots of this rootstock so far. We've propagated it by cuttings, and we've put it into tissue culture with agromalor, and it took off like a bat. They've already got several thousand liners coming along that we're going to be putting out into trials. And I've also grafted an infected Murcott and an infected EV1 and infected other triploid mandarin hybrid that was dying from greening that I wanted to rescue. And all of those were planted in the field. And so far, it's only been a few months, but they all look really, really good. So here's an example of finding something by paying attention to an unusual occurrence in the field and possibly getting something really good out of it. So here's we lost the property this was on. So Gapwade sold this grove for development and it no longer exists. But they gave us a heads up, and Dr. Chater and I went over and tried to, at the time the tree was 2 years old, and we had a heck of a time getting it out of the ground. So planted infected, you hear that trees with HLB lose their feeder roots. Well, I can tell you that this tree had not lost any feeder roots because we had a hell of a time getting it out of the ground. In fact, we had like 5 scalefold roots that were an inch thick that we had to cut to get it out of the ground. And we've transplanted it at the CREC, and it's doing just fine right now. So hopefully someday this seed tree will be producing new cellar seed, and we can propagate this by seed as well as by tissue culture. So a real promising rootstock candidate. I've also been working with super root mutants that Beth Lamb has found in her propagation through tissue culture down at Philip Ruck's tissue culture laboratory. So she's found a couple of clones of UFR1 that behave differently in tissue culture. One of them was clone number 28 that she called fast 28 because the root system, just the feeder roots, grew almost twice as fast as the standard UFR1, which is a very good rootstock against HLB in its own right. So we've propagated these and put some OLLs out. Actually, these are new OLL clones again out at Ori Lee's 3.5-year-old trees. And we changed the name from Fast 28 to Fast Eddie to just be a little more clever and fun. But the reset trees that we planted on these new OLL clones are just remarkable. And there's another clone called clone 55 that also came from UFR1, and they were doing very, very well out at Ori's as well. And we're going to be losing these trees too because they're in the home grove that was sold for development. But we got some data from the 3.5-year-old trees that's really interesting. And so last year, when we had a bricks problem, we harvested fruit in January. So this is fruit that should have been harvested not until March. So it was 2 months before optimal maturity. So the ratios are going to be low. But I just want to show you what a 3.5-year-old OLL on these rootstocks can do. We're getting up to 11.9 bricks on a 3.5-year-old tree on some of these rootstocks. So this was clone 55 that made the higher bricks, but the Fast Eddie also was making very nice bricks for a 3.5-year-old tree over 10 in January. And it's going to go up, it's going to go up before the optimal harvest date as well. So there's potential for having rootstocks that with young trees can give you the high bricks that we need. If we're going to be planting millions of new trees in the state, we want things that can get the bricks up as fast as possible because we need that for maintaining the quality of our NFC juice. So it's a very important thing to be taking a look at. So what I think needs to happen and what our breeding team agrees with and is trying to make happen is we need a lot more stage 2 trials where we're combining the new rootstock candidates with scion candidates that we think can be real winners for our industry, and increasing our options and our diversity and having a better balance of fresh fruit options with processing options. So here's an example of a trial that we got funding from the University IFAS administration at the DeLuca Preserve, which is about an hour-and-a-half drive from the center. And on the left, you'll see rootstocks that are being propagated by agromaloran tissue culture. And on the right are new scions that you've heard a lot about today. And these trees are ready to plant, and the land's being prepared right now. Was actually herbicided yesterday, and so next month this trial is going to go into the ground, and we're very excited to get this trial in the ground because we think we're going to be able to demonstrate to everyone that you can indeed grow some of these combinations successfully in the HLB world. But I think we need a lot more of these kinds of trials where we're combining the new selections on the best new rootstock candidates, comparing them to the best available rootstocks now, and let's see what happens. And I think as the nutrition programs evolve, you're gonna see some real successes. So that leads me into what I want to kind of finish up with, which is the dreaded N word. And everybody and their brother are out there putting antibiotics in their trees now with oxytetracycline, and everybody thinks that's going to be the answer. But I've already been getting reliable results with nutrition that I think is a more viable long-term way to go. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of information from all the things that I've learned by doing this. I call it my Saturday job, but as a breeder, Fred and I, we spent our entire careers creating the best hybrids that we can, and the best soma clones and irradiated clones, whatever. And we were so sad to watch them get sick and die from HLB. So that's why we got involved with nutrition, because we thought we could help preserve our babies and get to see them grow up to be big enough to produce the fruit that we could evaluate, and not lose any of the genetic diversity that we've worked so hard to create. So one of the first things that I learned, and Mari Boyd was very helpful in helping me learn this. So I give Mari a lot of credit for teaching me a lot of the things I started out with learning about nutrition. But one of the things we learned was that the deficiencies caused by HLB are all the secondary and micronutrients. Every single one of them is affected, and NPK are not affected. So NPK are pretty much normal. And we also learned that the deficiencies in the roots are twice as great as they are in the leaves. So if you're going to do a foliar program to correct deficiencies, I expect that the result's going to be very temporary, and it's not going to fix the problem in the roots unless you put so much on the leaves that it washes down and the roots can get it. So you got to fix all of this to get your vascular system back online. And I've been trying to do that with slow release fertilizer. So there's a number of ways you can skin a cat, but for me, the slow release fertilizer is the most idiot proof way to do it. So I did some early experiments, and Manjul helped me with these. But here's just an example of some roots from that greenhouse trial. And here's a root system that was treated with a Harold slow release, supplemented with manganese. You can see the feeder roots compared to the control that only had the Harold's control release. So manganese is playing a big role in feeder root preservation. Here's a very old slide that I've been showing for 6 years. And a lot of this information is being ignored now, but we treated sugar bell trees that have had HLB for years with a Harold's product, along with extra manganese and boron above and beyond what the Harold's had in it. And we were getting almost all the fruit to look like this. And the trees that didn't get treated had a lot of 50% of the fruit look like the bottom line there. So why there hasn't been more research on figuring out, why these things work is beyond me. So anyway, I put down a slide here that kind of gives you an idea of my thought processes and what I've learned. And I want to go over this in detail because I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done. HLB causes severe deficiencies of the secondary and micronutrients, not NPK. So think about that. If you double your fertilizer to get this problem corrected, you're doubling the NPK, and you're putting on NPK that the tree doesn't need, and you're messing up the ratios of the nutrients. So the disease is already messing up the ratios, and you're making it worse if you just double everything. So I think it needs to be corrected to restore proper vascular system function. And the work that I've done also shows that the trees need a constant enhanced supply of the secondary and micros year round, and that includes winter. And so you need to pay attention to these nutrient ratios. So you need a constant supply. And if you do this, and we've been doing it at St. Helena, and at St. Helena, you can stop fruit drop, and we've had improved fruit quality every year. We've had, on good rootstock, we've had sustainable yields at St. Helena. 2 years ago, we had 86% pack out of the oranges there, and last year it was almost that good. So if you do this, there's evidence on across the board on 32 different rootstocks. You can stop fruit drop. You can have pre-HLB fruit quality. So the use of CRF is a good way to do this. I know people are doing it with liquid fertilizer. That's a little more tricky, but it probably can work fine. But you got to pay attention to the labels of the product, because many of the expensive control release products only have the NPK coded and not the minors. And this can actually create a bigger problem, because if you're thinking you're buying a slow release product that's going to provide you with what you want for 6 months, and you put it out and you're not going to put any other minors out for that 6 months. If you have a 2-inch rain the first month, it's all gone. You don't have any minors for the next 5 months. So you've actually created a worse problem that you would have had if you didn't use it. So make sure that your secondary and micros are coated in the products that you try. So we know that the high quality CRF products are expensive. And so right now we're testing a soluble dry program where we're using a traditional 4 soluble dry program, where the first and third applications are typical historical mixes. But the second and the fourth, we've incorporated a very strong package of slow release micros and secondaries. And if you're interested in this, I'm happy to provide you for details of what we're doing. And we just started it this year, but so far I'm very excited about how the trees look. And it does cost more. So this program is probably going to cost about $400 more per acre. But think about what you're spending now on all these other things. Antibiotics, $200 an acre, gibberellic acid, $100 an acre, excessive psyllid spraying. What does that cost when you don't really need that many sprays? So I think it can be affordable, especially if it keeps the fruit on the tree and keeps the soluble solids up. So this winter, we're going to learn a lot about how this is working. Stay tuned. I have a picture here of our Eagle Lake trial where we have implemented this program, and I've taken a few people down there. If you want to go see these trees, give us a holler. We'll be glad to take you down there. This is a very recent picture. This is a commercial combination. OLL8 on UF-IFAS. Every single tree is beautiful. Let me go back. I wasn't ready to leave that yet. There's a lot of fruit set. So we'll find out this year whether the program is holding the fruit on the tree and what the fruit quality is going to be, but I'm excited about it. There's also a couple of new OLL clones as part of the MAC trial planted here that even look better than these, and they're well worth seeing. And Fred has a sweet orange-like hybrid called 6255 that's also in the MAC Scion trial, and there's 50 trees of that here that look fantastic. And we've already done Yu Wang, our flavoromics professor, has done a manuscript on that particular sweet orange-like hybrid, and you can't tell it's not a sweet orange, so it'll end up being classified as an orange, and it's showing exceptional HLB tolerance. So if you want to see these trees, get a hold of us. Over here, I have my processing combinations that I think with a good nutrition program can be viable now. But I want to point out, there's never been any antibiotics used in this grove. There were no tree covers used, and there's been no growth regulators used. So this is just genetics and nutrition. So over here, these are my favorite oranges right now to recommend for processing. And all these rootstocks can work, but depending on your conditions, you'll probably want to get advice on which ones to try. And if you're following Kim Bowman's program, you know, he just released a couple more what he calls super sours. And so he also has, you know, US 802, US 812, and 942 that are working in a lot of places, and the super sours. So we've got a big portfolio of available commercial rootstocks that when you combine them with these better oranges and combine them with the better nutrition program, I think they can work very fine right now. So I just hope everybody gets out there and starts trying these things. Put the whole thing together. It's not one thing that's the answer. You got to combine the different things that we're learning into a package to make it work. So for me, the ticket for the immediate future is improved scion genetics combined with improved rootstock genetics and enhanced nutrition, especially taking care of the roots year round, and you will be successful. So I'm going to finish with this picture. This is from the Tropicana project, and this was about 3 miles from the CREC over on Lake Lowry Road. And over here I have a picture from 2016 showing Allison Drown, formerly in charge of this grow for Tropicana, but these are OOL8s on UFR4 on the left. And then from this past spring, you see Jim Graham and Dr. Chater, same trees in the spring of 2023. So this genetic combination, and there are others there that have worked very, very well. Now the property belongs to Jason Griffin, and Tropicana is not supporting it anymore. So Jason decided he wanted to have everything harvested at the same time. So he pulled out all the earlies and the mid-season oranges, which it was a shame though, because there were some absolutely gorgeous Valquarius trees that were loaded to the gills with fruit this past season. But anyway, he kept all the Valencia clones and the OOLs, and he has some very beautiful plots of V965 and OOLs on 897, Swingle, and some of the UFR rootstocks and Rubido trifoliate orange as well that are still there and still doing very, very well. They did a pretty good nutrition program here, but it was, in my opinion, weak during the winter months. And so they have very nice yields on these trees, but I think the fruit quality can be improved if Jason ends up taking care of the micros and secondaries during the fall and winter months, which I think he's going to be able to do. So all the oranges that we've grafted to the Sugar Bell hybrids, the first batch of about 2,000 trees is going to be going over to this grove. So it'll be real nice to have those. And we hope to get 10 of each one, so we get a real good handle on how each one of these new Sugar Bell rootstock hybrids and some other rootstock hybrids that we've made will do in a commercial setting. So I'm really looking forward to that, because this is a really good cooperator. Jason's a really turned on cooperator. So John's developing a good relationship with him, and a lot of good things are going to continue to come from this grove, even though Tropicana pulled the plug on their part of it. So I'll stop there and answer any questions you might have. What I intended to achieve today was to expose you to all the things that are possible. And I encourage you to get in touch with any of our breeding team and with our extension agents. And if you want to discuss the things that are commercially available, what rootstock should you use? Are you interested in anything, details of what we learned from nutrition? All those sorts of things. And we'll do our best to give you the best advice we can. But we want to get as many new combinations out there on a small scale. I think you should try a lot of things, find out what works in your hands, and then you can increase, those combinations that are successful for you. So we got a lot of work ahead of us, but I think we have answers in the pipeline, and we just got to work to refine, the ones that really work the best. So thank you for listening, and again, I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. And Fred's probably still online. I don't know, he might have had to go somewhere. But anyway, we're available, outside of this as well. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Grosser, for the information. Any question or comment? Feel free to unmute yourself and speak up.
Hey, it's Tommy Thayer here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you, Tommy.
I got a nutrition question. On the micronutrients, what is the longest? Is it like a 6 month or is it a 9 month? Is there a minimum coating that you can put on?
The Harold's products that I've worked with were 6 months, and the Florican is supposed to be a 360-day, the 1248, which is really good product, especially for planting trees. but I found that I only trust it for 9 months. You can test it in the field by just pinching the prills, and if they're hollow, then they're out of gas. So you can monitor how long it actually lasts by pinching the prills. One of the issues on bigger trees is having rains wash it down. If there's a slope, it'll wash it down. So you gotta have an irregular soil and not a smooth surface where it can slide. So you can accomplish that with disking. There's all kind of ideas being thrown out there with Temnic applicators and all kinds of things, but there hasn't been a real breakthrough in the best way to do that yet. But when we're using it on the mature trees in St. Helena, we haven't had a real big issue with the runoff. It's relatively flat there.
Are you broadcasting, just hand broadcasting the material, or how are y'all putting it out?
On young trees, we do it all by hand in the microjet zone, but for the 4 soluble dry program, it's being put out with a typical spreader right now. And so there's a new product that just became available that's been put together by Diamond R. It's a 505 that's a 180-day packaged with, has all the secondaries and minors coated. And we haven't tested it yet, but we ordered, Dr. Chater ordered 4 tons of it. So we're gonna start testing it. I think it has really good potential. I've been trying to get all the big companies to make this kind of a product, because you can use it as a supplement to any other program you have. If you want to do liquid or soluble dries or a combination, here's a product that you can use as a supplement, and you can do your NPK however you want. So we're trying to get a hold of that product and start testing it. I'm excited about what I think it can do. So we'll find out in the next few years.
On one of your,
I have information on that product too. If you want, contact me. I can send.
Yeah, I'll get that from you later. On one of your slides, you mentioned super root and fast eddy. Is a super root the mutant X639?
Well, there's a whole bunch of, Beth's given me about 10 different super roots. Those happen to be the ones that have caught my attention when we putting trees out in the field on them. And so right now, Beth is scaling those up at Phil's. They're both mutants of UFR1.
Okay.
And so we're scaling them up, and I'm trying to get them into I have a grower that wants to put them into an advanced trial. So we're going to try to get about 200 and something trees on each one of them out in the next year.
And so what about the fast eddy?
Yeah, that's one of them. Fast eddy is one of those too.
So the fast eddy and the super root is
part of the super root is just a category.
Okay.
So fast eddy and clone 55 are both super root mutants.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, fast eddy is just a category of things that Beth's finding in tissue culture that are off types of the standard when she propagates them. So she keeps anything that has enhanced root growth that compared to the original clone. And so we don't know what the genetic change is responsible for that. But in the case of fast eddy, we've also noticed that there's a allele missing. So we think that's a deletion mutant as well. So there's a lot of interesting genetic things going on, but that takes a lot of academic work to figure out. And Fred's lab is the key to getting to those answers.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. One thing I didn't mention today is we have a number of new red grapefruit clones, and I don't have pictures of the fruit, but so far N11-7 is the best one in the Millennium trial block, and there's a lot of interest in this one, but there's a number of other ones, and there's 2 or 3 new ones that haven't gotten out yet. Very dark reds, and they look like they have a little bit better greening tolerance and grow off trees better, way better than Star Ruby. So that opportunity is going to be coming along as well.
How do you rate Pomeroz?
I'm sorry?
How about Pomeroz?
I still didn't hear you. It's not coming through.
I am talking about Pomeroz.
Pomeroz. Oh, okay, yeah, Pomeroz. We're planting a trial of a very nice dark red. It was originally put out as 51995, but it had some seeds. And so we've got an irradiated line that made it seedless. It's available. The trial is going to be planted with down in Bowling Green. And those trees are coming from Bright Leaf and they're going into the ground any day now. And we've got pomelets. There's 2 seedless clones I've selected. The first one that we've planted has a problem with what looks like PFD, but I think it's a genetic problem. So a lot of the buttons fall off, but I don't really think it's caused by PFD. And so the fruit set is, it still sets a reasonable amount of fruit, but not as much as it could. So I'm hoping that the second clone that we selected doesn't have that issue. I also have some delicious other pomelos that you can try that have seeds. One of them is Monster, which is absolutely a gorgeous piece of fruit and delicious, very large segments. And then there's another one that has really high bricks. It's very, very sweet. I think it's N12-7. Those are available for anyone that wants to trial them.
Any other question?
One more. Do you think the mutant X639 is going to be true to type, or do we know yet?
Yeah, well, the tree that we dug up and moved is still in juvenility, but I don't know how long it's going to take to flower and fruit, but we won't know the answer to that until it flowers and fruits and we can look at the seeds.
If you need any help, let me know.
Okay, I know that. Thank you. You've been very helpful.
No problem.
Any question? Any comment? Thank you, Allison. Thank you for all your participation.
Thanks, Allison.
You are most welcome.
Again, if you are interested in CEUs, please send me an email and include your name, your email address, and your license number. Thank you all again for joining us and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.